There is a quiet kind of power that the world often overlooks. It does not shout, it does not demand attention, and it does not move with haste. It exists in the stillness, an inner state that cannot be shaken by chaos or noise. To embody this stillness is to embody strength, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures. True feminine power does not need to prove itself, it simply is. It flows, it observes, and it waits. It does not rush to react because it understands that everything comes and goes, that emotions rise and fall like waves, and that what remains steady in between those movements is the center of power. When a woman cultivates stillness within herself, she no longer becomes a slave to emotional storms. She no longer seeks validation through reaction or control. Instead, she begins to witness her emotions with the awareness of a guardian watching over sacred ground. Stillness teaches her that not every feeling deserves expression and not every moment requires a response. The power lies not in suppressing emotion, but in mastering the space through which it passes. Like the surface of a deep lake, the still mind reflects truth clearly, while the disturbed one distorts everything it sees. Stillness is not absence, it is presence at its highest level. It is the conscious decision to remain unmoved by what does not serve growth. In moments of conflict or confusion, when the world pulls at you to answer, to explain, to justify, stillness allows you to retreat into your own temple of awareness. You do not lose yourself in the noise, you listen. You feel everything, but you let nothing consume you. The modern world has glorified reaction, quick responses, emotional outbursts, the need to be seen and heard instantly. But strength is not found in speed, it is found in depth. The still woman is misunderstood because she carries mystery. People project onto her what they cannot see within themselves. Her silence unsettles those who rely on chaos to feel alive. Her calmness exposes the unrest in others. Yet she does not waver. She knows that to remain still in a reactive world is to stand in rare power. Her strength is not a performance but a practice. It is the ability to hold herself steady in moments when others lose their ground. Stillness requires discipline. It is not passivity, but conscious restraint. It is easy to let emotion dictate behavior, to speak when the heart burns, to act when the mind is clouded. But it takes strength to sit with discomfort, to breathe through uncertainty, to let the fire of emotion purify rather than destroy. This kind of stillness transforms reaction into reflection. It turns pain into understanding. It reveals that every emotional wave is temporary, and beneath it lies something eternal, the awareness that watches, the presence that remains. In stillness, a woman rediscovers her natural rhythm. She moves with intention, not impulse. Her steps become deliberate. Her words carry weight because they emerge from clarity, not chaos. When she pauses before reacting, she gives life a chance to reveal itself more fully. She sees beyond appearances and recognizes patterns. How people move from their own unhealed emotions, how situations unfold according to deeper laws. This awareness becomes her protection. It shields her not through defense, but through understanding. Stillness allows her to access intuition, a faculty that thrives in silence. When the mind is noisy, intuition cannot speak. When the heart is turbulent, clarity cannot enter. Through stillness, she learns to hear the subtle whispers that guide her toward truth. These whispers are not loud, they require attention, patience, and trust. They emerge from the depths of consciousness where no confusion can survive. The disciplined woman does not chase answers, she allows them to surface naturally through her stillness. Stillness also changes how she experiences relationships. When others project their emotions onto her, she does not mirror them back unconsciously. She becomes like water, able to reflect without absorbing. She holds space without losing form. This is where her mystery deepens. People cannot easily read her because she is not reacting according to predictable patterns. Her calm presence invites others to meet her in their own stillness or to leave if they cannot. Either way, she remains whole. In the practice of stillness, she learns that power is not about control over others but about mastery over self. Every external battle dissolves when the inner one ends. Stillness is not about withdrawal from the world, but engagement from a higher state of awareness. It is being fully present without being pulled in every direction by desire or fear. It is knowing that everything external is transient while the internal, if cultivated, remains unshakable. The world tests this stillness constantly. People will provoke it, circumstances will challenge it, emotions will rise to pull it apart. But the disciplined feminine energy does not fight these tests. She welcomes them as opportunities to refine her strength. Every challenge becomes a mirror reflecting her level of mastery. When she chooses stillness again and again, she becomes unbreakable, not because she resists life, but because she flows with it in full awareness. To be still in a restless world is to carry the essence of timeless power. It is to move through life with quiet grace, to lead without force, to influence without demanding. Stillness reveals that true strength does not come from resistance, but from alignment. It is the art of being fully aware yet undisturbed, deeply feeling yet completely free, entirely engaged yet inwardly silent. Through this stillness, a woman reclaims the ancient wisdom of her nature, the ability to remain grounded while everything around her shifts, to radiate presence that speaks louder than any word, and to embody strength not through dominance, but through the serenity that comes from complete self-mastery. The first step toward true emotional discipline is the simple yet profound act of observation. Observation is the art of witnessing without immediate judgment, of creating space between stimulus and response. It is a pause, a breath, a moment in which a woman claims her power not by acting but by seeing. To observe is not to withdraw or to detach entirely. It is to engage with life from a higher vantage point, a place where clarity can emerge from the noise. In a world that rewards impulsive reactions, immediate responses, and emotional reactivity, the woman who practices observation cultivates a rare form of mastery. She is the eye in the storm, unshaken by the winds of circumstance, able to see the currents of emotion swirling around her without being swept away. Observation begins with awareness of the self. Before she can truly understand the outside world, she must recognize her own inner patterns. How does she typically react to anger, disappointment, or desire? What triggers the rise of anxiety or impatience within her? By observing these internal reactions without judgment, she begins to cultivate a consciousness that is independent of automatic behavior. She notices the first flicker of irritation before it turns into an argument. She feels the initial stirrings of attachment before they demand expression. In this space of awareness, she discovers freedom, the freedom to choose a response rather than to be compelled by impulse. To observe before reacting is to honor the intelligence of pause. When a situation provokes, the instinct is to respond immediately, often without full understanding. But reaction without reflection is like throwing a stone into a river without knowing how the current will carry it. The consequences may ripple further than intended. Through observation, a woman learns to wait, to allow the first surge of emotion to settle before taking action. This is not weakness, it is courage. It is the courage to stand in uncertainty, to trust that clarity will emerge if she allows space for it. Observation also cultivates empathy. When she observes before reacting, she sees others not merely as obstacles or threats, but as reflections of their own experiences, emotions, and limitations. She begins to recognize that most reactive behavior comes from unhealed parts of the self. A rude word, a sudden withdrawal, a harsh judgment, they are never entirely about her. They are echoes of the other person's internal state. By observing rather than responding immediately, she creates a pause that allows understanding to arise. In that pause, compassion is born, and the response that follows carries wisdom rather than reactivity. The power of observation lies in its ability to transform emotional energy into clarity. Anger, frustration, fear, and desire are not erased, they are acknowledged, studied, and refined. A woman who observes does not deny what she feels, she learns from it. She examines why a particular remark triggered discomfort, why a certain action stirred attachment, or why a situation elicited fear. By mapping the landscape of her own mind and heart, she gains insight into the patterns that govern her life. Each moment of observation becomes a lesson in self-mastery, a tool to navigate relationships, work, and life with elegance and discernment. Observation is also an act of presence. When a woman observes, she is fully in the moment, not lost in projection or expectation. She notices subtle cues, the tone in a voice, the tension in a body, the shifts in energy around her. These nuances, invisible to those who rush to react, reveal the deeper currents of a situation. Through this attentiveness, she begins to respond not to assumptions or fears, but to the reality in front of her. The clarity that arises from observation allows her responses to be deliberate, measured, and aligned with her inner wisdom. Practicing observation before reaction strengthens boundaries. In observing, she discerns what belongs to her and what does not. She recognizes which emotions are hers to navigate and which belong to others. She notices when her energy is being drawn into someone else's turbulence and chooses consciously whether to engage or to maintain space. In this way, observation becomes an act of protection and empowerment. It creates a shield not through resistance but through awareness, not through defense but through understanding. Observation also deepens intuition. The more she witnesses, the more attuned she becomes to subtle signals, patterns, and shifts that others overlook. She begins to perceive the unspoken, the hidden motives, the silent truths beneath surface appearances. This heightened perception allows her to respond not just with reason but with insight, blending intellect and instinct into a seamless form of wisdom. By observing first, she learns to move through the world with foresight rather than reaction, with awareness rather than habit. Observation before reaction fosters emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable, full of provocations, misunderstandings, and unexpected challenges. A reactive mind is tossed like a leaf in the wind, subject to every external force. The disciplined woman, however, cultivates a steady center through observation. She sees the surge of emotion, acknowledges it, and chooses her course with clarity. Even when tested, she maintains composure because she understands the impermanence of emotional turbulence. Each moment of observation strengthens her ability to remain anchored, to meet life with calm and wisdom, and to respond from a place of inner authority. Through observation, she transforms ordinary experiences into profound opportunities for growth. Every interaction becomes a mirror, every challenge a teacher. She learns to watch her own impulses and the behavior of others without attachment, without judgment, and without haste. This practice of witnessing cultivates a presence that is magnetic, mysterious, and powerful. People are drawn to her not because she demands attention, but because she embodies a clarity and serenity that is rare in a world driven by reaction. Observation before reaction is, in essence, the foundation of emotional discipline. It is the space in which choice is born, the pause that allows wisdom to emerge, the moment where power and serenity converge. It is a practice of turning inward while engaging outwardly, of holding still while life moves around her, of cultivating strength not through action alone but through mindful presence, patience, and awareness. There is a power in the world that is often overlooked, a quiet force that carries more influence than volume or aggression ever could. It is the power of restraint, the elegance of holding back, the conscious choice to act with awareness rather than impulsivity. Grace in restraint is the hallmark of true emotional discipline. It is the ability to navigate life's provocations with poise, to move through challenges without being consumed by them, and to express power without force. In a culture that often equates strength with loudness, speed, or reaction, restraint is misunderstood. It is mistaken for weakness or passivity, but in reality, it is a deep and intentional mastery of self, a deliberate cultivation of inner authority that does not need to shout to be felt. The essence of restraint begins with awareness. To restrain is not to suppress or ignore emotion. It is to recognize its presence and allow it to pass through conscious choice. Every emotion carries energy, and when unexamined, it can erupt uncontrollably, leaving behind consequences that are both unintended and damaging. A woman who embodies grace in restraint observes the rise of her emotions without surrendering to them. She notices anger, desire, frustration, and even fear, yet she does not let these feelings dictate her actions. Instead, she lets them inform her, giving each emotion a space to exist while deciding the most appropriate, measured response. Restraint requires courage. It is easy to react, to lash out when offended, to chase what excites us, to give in to every impulse. It is far more difficult to pause, to breathe, and to allow wisdom to guide the response. In this pause lies strength. It is the recognition that not every battle needs to be fought, not every argument needs a voice, and not every moment requires immediate action. Grace emerges in the measured approach, in the choice to navigate life from a place of calm authority rather than from emotional turbulence. The beauty of restraint is in its subtlety. While others may command attention through overt displays of power, the woman who masters restraint does so quietly, almost invisibly. She does not need to prove herself because her presence, her actions, and even her silences speak volumes. People sense the weight of her composure, the authority of her calm, and the confidence of her measured choices. This form of power is magnetic precisely because it does not demand recognition. It does not shout or perform, it exists effortlessly, drawing respect and admiration without needing to earn it. Grace in restraint also cultivates depth of character. A woman who controls her impulses develops a clarity that cannot be acquired through reaction alone. She understands her triggers, her motivations, and the patterns of her behavior. Through this understanding, she gains insight into herself and others, recognizing the subtleties of human nature that are invisible to those who act hastily. Her choices become deliberate, informed by reflection rather than reaction, guided by wisdom rather than desire. In every interaction, she moves with intention, embodying a form of power that is both serene and formidable. Restraint transforms relationships. It allows her to respond rather than react, to communicate with clarity and compassion rather than with confusion or anger. When provoked, she does not mirror the negativity directed at her. Instead, she maintains composure, creating a space in which understanding and dialogue can flourish. Her presence becomes stabilizing, offering a calm center in the turbulence of others' emotions. Those around her are influenced not through fear or intimidation, but through admiration and respect. They learn consciously or unconsciously the value of measured response, the power of patience, and the elegance of composure. To practice restraint is to embrace mystery. When a woman does not reveal every thought, every feeling, and every impulse, she creates a sense of depth that captivates and inspires. People cannot predict her actions, and in that unpredictability lies fascination. She moves through life with a rhythm guided by discernment, not by immediate impulse. The restraint she practices adds layers to her personality, layers that are felt intuitively by those who interact with her. There is a magnetism in the unspoken, a power in the measured, and a respect for the space she maintains. Restraint is also a teacher. Each moment in which she chooses observation over reaction, patience over impulse, reflection over eruption, strengthens her self-mastery. Life presents constant challenges, provocations, and temptations, and the practice of restraint turns these tests into opportunities for growth. By choosing to act with care and intention rather than from emotional impulse, she refines her understanding of herself, her values, and the nature of influence. Every exercise in restraint deepens her awareness of the connection between power and presence, between choice and consequence, between inner calm and outer impact. The elegance of restraint is evident in decision-making. The woman who embodies grace does not rush to judgment or action. She weighs the consequences of her choices, considers the perspectives of others, and aligns her actions with her principles. In doing so, she maintains integrity even in difficult situations. She demonstrates that power is not about domination or control, but about alignment with higher awareness and self-possession. Her decisions carry weight precisely because they are measured, deliberate, and informed by discernment. Restraint also fosters resilience. By not reacting to every provocation, she conserves her energy for what truly matters. Emotional discipline allows her to navigate life with stability, turning turbulence into clarity and challenge into insight. She learns to endure without bitterness, to respond without excess, and to move through experiences without being consumed. Her calm authority becomes a refuge, a force that stabilizes not only herself but also the environment around her. Through grace in restraint, the feminine art of power becomes tangible. It is power without aggression, influence without force, and presence without display. It teaches that true strength is measured not by how much one acts, but by how wisely one chooses when and how to act. In every choice to pause, every measured response, every conscious decision to navigate life with elegance rather than impulse, she cultivates a power that is timeless, magnetic, and deeply transformative. In a world obsessed with achievement, recognition, and external validation, there exists a deeper, quieter power, one that is cultivated not through doing more, achieving more, or performing for others, but through simply being. Presence over performance is the art of existing fully in the moment, of inhabiting one's own energy without the need for constant approval, validation, or attention. It is the embodiment of calm authority, the serene confidence of a woman who knows that her value is not measured by accolades or the eyes of others, but by the depth of her awareness and the authenticity of her being. True feminine power thrives not in exhibition, but in the quiet, magnetic energy of presence. To cultivate presence over performance, one must first turn inward. The world offers countless distractions, demands, and pressures, each tempting the mind to seek recognition through action. Yet the woman who prioritizes presence recognizes that no external measure can define her essence. She begins by observing herself, her thoughts, emotions, and impulses without judgment. She learns to inhabit her body fully, to breathe deeply, and to root herself in the awareness of now. In doing so, she cultivates an internal gravity that does not rely on applause, acknowledgement, or constant affirmation. Her sense of worth emerges from alignment with her own truth rather than the reflections of others. Presence over performance is not a rejection of action. It is a conscious choice to act from awareness rather than compulsion. The woman who embodies this principle moves with intention, not urgency. She chooses actions that align with her values, desires, and energy rather than those dictated by external expectations or societal pressures. Every movement, every word, every gesture carries weight because it emerges from clarity rather than performance. She does not rush to prove herself or to be noticed. Instead, she inhabits the space she occupies fully, allowing her energy to speak louder than any word or action could. In relationships, presence over performance transforms connection. Most people interact through expectations, roles, and performances. They react, please, or compete to be seen. The woman who embodies presence, however, engages from authenticity. She listens without distraction, responds with awareness, and offers her attention as a gift rather than a transaction. Others sense the depth of her presence immediately, drawn not by effort or display, but by the calm confidence that radiates naturally. She does not need to control the outcome of interactions or to impress those around her. Her influence is subtle, magnetic, and lasting. Presence becomes a form of communication that transcends words, a resonance that reaches deeply into those she encounters. Presence over performance also requires the courage to embrace stillness. In a culture that equates business with value, choosing to simply be is a radical act. The woman who embodies presence allows herself moments of silence, reflection, and pause, recognizing that clarity emerges from quiet awareness rather than constant action. She does not fill every space with noise or movement to prove worthiness. Instead, she trusts that her energy, when grounded and attuned, is more compelling than any display of effort. Stillness becomes a canvas for presence, and through it, she cultivates an authenticity that performance alone cannot achieve. This principle also transforms the experience of desire and ambition. Many chase achievement out of fear, insecurity, or the need to be seen. Performance becomes a mask, a way to prove value to the outside world. The woman who practices presence over performance, however, acts from alignment rather than compulsion. Her goals are guided by intention and clarity, not by comparison or societal expectation. She moves through life with a quiet determination that does not demand notice, yet leaves an undeniable impact. Success, when it comes, is a byproduct of authenticity, not the primary objective. Presence over performance cultivates emotional mastery. When a woman is fully present, she is less likely to be swept away by reaction, drama, or external pressures. She observes without judgment, listens without needing to respond, and engages without attachment to outcomes. Emotional turbulence loses its grip because her energy is grounded in awareness rather than in the highs and lows of external validation. She does not perform for attention, approval, or control, and in doing so, she maintains a stability that others find magnetic and inspiring. Her calm becomes a source of strength, and her composure becomes a subtle yet undeniable form of influence. In her presence, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Moments that others might overlook are seen fully. The subtle shift in expression, the unspoken tension in a room, the energy that moves beneath the surface of conversation. She does not need to comment on it or control it. Her awareness alone amplifies the depth of the moment. Presence transforms perception, allowing her to navigate life with clarity and discernment. People are drawn not by what she does, but by the quality of her attention, the steadiness of her energy, and the authenticity she embodies. Presence over performance also teaches resilience. In a world that constantly measures, judges, and compares, the ability to exist fully without seeking validation becomes a shield. External noise and expectation cannot shake her because her center lies within in the awareness of her own being. She does not bend to please, does not overextend to impress, and does not compromise authenticity for recognition. Instead, she moves through challenges with grounded composure, maintaining the integrity of her energy even when circumstances demand chaos. Through presence over performance, a woman discovers freedom. She is free from the compulsions to prove, to compete, to impress, and to control how she is perceived. She no longer measures her value by the reactions of others, and in this freedom, her power becomes palpable. People are drawn to her not because she has to show them, but because she allows herself to be fully, unapologetically, and authentically present. Her energy resonates, her awareness illuminates, and her influence spreads quietly yet profoundly, demonstrating that true power is not in doing more, but in being fully aligned with oneself. Emotional alchemy is the art of turning the raw, often chaotic energy of our emotions into wisdom, strength, and insight. It is the conscious practice of observing feelings not as burdens to bear, but as tools for transformation. A woman who masters this art does not suppress her emotions, nor does she act impulsively upon them. Instead, she acknowledges them, studies their origin, and allows them to guide her toward deeper self-understanding. Every emotion, anger, fear, sadness, joy, or desire, carries a lesson. When she learns to transmute these energies with awareness, she transforms not only her inner world, but also the way she navigates life, relationships, and power. Emotional alchemy is not a passive process, it is an active engagement with the inner landscape, a deliberate practice of refinement and self-mastery. The first step in emotional alchemy is awareness. Before transformation can occur, the woman must recognize the presence of her emotions fully. She does not shy away from discomfort or attempt to numb what arises within her. Instead, she turns her attention inward, observing the intensity, texture, and rhythm of each feeling. Anger may manifest as heat in her chest, fear as a tightening in her stomach, longing as a subtle pull in her heart. By naming and feeling each emotion without judgment, she begins the alchemical process. Awareness is the crucible in which raw emotional energy is contained and prepared for transformation. Observation alone, however, is not enough. The alchemical process requires discernment, the ability to distinguish between instinctive reaction and conscious response. Many people are swept away by the immediacy of emotion, allowing it to dictate words, actions, and decisions. The woman who practices emotional alchemy, however, cultivates a pause. She witnesses the rise of emotion, considers its source, and chooses how to channel it. In this space of discernment, the energy of feeling can be refined. Anger, when understood, becomes assertiveness. Fear, when examined, becomes awareness. Sadness, when acknowledged, becomes empathy. The raw material of emotion is never wasted. It is restructured and redirected toward growth and empowerment. Emotional alchemy is deeply connected to self-reflection. Every feeling carries a message from the subconscious, a signal of unmet needs, unresolved wounds, or unacknowledged desires. By reflecting on the source of emotion, she uncovers patterns of thought and behavior that may have previously gone unnoticed. This reflection is not an exercise in self-criticism, but in understanding. She learns why certain situations trigger discomfort, why specific interactions provoke reactivity, and why certain desires arise repeatedly. Through this process, she transforms reaction into insight, chaos into clarity, and turbulence into guidance. The power of emotional alchemy also lies in transformation through expression. Once an emotion has been acknowledged and understood, it must be expressed in a way that serves growth rather than destruction. This may be through creative outlets, verbal articulation, mindful communication, or intentional action. The woman who practices emotional alchemy channels her energy with precision and awareness. Anger becomes constructive assertiveness, addressing injustice or boundary violations. Fear becomes caution or preparation, guiding decisions with clarity. Desire becomes inspiration, fueling purposeful action without attachment. Each emotion is reshaped, transmuted, and elevated into a form that serves her well-being and the refinement of her character. Equally important is the integration of emotional lessons into daily life. Transformation is not a one-time act but a continuous practice. A woman who has mastered emotional alchemy does not merely experience insight in isolated moments. She integrates this awareness into her behavior, her interactions, and her presence. She moves through challenges with a poise that reflects her understanding of herself and others. Her energy becomes magnetic, not because it is forceful, but because it is coherent, refined, and aligned with her inner truth. Emotional alchemy is, therefore, both an internal and external practice, shaping the self and the way she engages with the world. Resilience is a natural byproduct of this practice. Life is unpredictable, full of emotional highs and lows, disappointments, and provocations. The woman who has cultivated emotional alchemy does not collapse under the weight of these experiences. She meets adversity with awareness, allowing emotion to guide rather than govern her. Challenges become opportunities to refine her understanding, to test her mastery, and to deepen her capacity for presence. In this way, every emotional experience, no matter how intense or uncomfortable, becomes a stepping stone toward empowerment. Emotional alchemy also transforms relationships. When she has mastered the art of refining emotion, her interactions shift from reactive to responsive. She listens with clarity, responds with intention, and engages from a place of grounded energy. Others are drawn to her because she embodies steadiness and understanding. Conflicts are navigated with tact and insight, and emotional turbulence becomes an invitation for deeper connection rather than division. The presence she cultivates through emotional alchemy radiates confidence, serenity, and influence, creating a dynamic that is both alluring and stabilizing. The practice requires patience, for transformation does not happen instantaneously. Each emotion presents an opportunity to practice alchemy repeatedly, and mastery emerges over time through consistency, observation, and reflection. The woman learns to meet herself and her experiences with compassion, recognizing that each moment of struggle carries potential for refinement. Her ability to remain present with discomfort, to feel without being consumed, and to transmute energy into insight strengthens her inner authority and enhances her capacity for influence. Through emotional alchemy, the feminine art of power and mystery is revealed. The woman who masters this practice moves through life with a depth and magnetism that cannot be achieved through external performance alone. She does not act out of impulse, fear, or desire for approval. She acts from refined awareness, guided by the lessons of her own emotions. Her energy is cohesive, her presence commanding, and her influence profound. Emotional alchemy becomes a path to self-mastery, a vehicle through which raw feelings are transformed into wisdom, strength, and subtle power. Their softness is often misunderstood in a world that equates strength with force, volume, and dominance. To many, softness appears as vulnerability, fragility, or passivity. Yet true mastery lies precisely in the ability to be soft while remaining unshakable, to embody gentleness without relinquishing power, and to move through life with an elegance that commands respect without demanding it. Softness as mastery is the quiet, deliberate art of aligning vulnerability with strength, emotion with discernment, and receptivity with authority. It is the feminine paradox that those who appear gentle on the surface often possess the deepest reservoirs of resilience, wisdom, and influence. At its core, softness as mastery is awareness. It begins with self-recognition, understanding one's emotions, desires, fears, and triggers without judgment or repression. The soft woman does not seek to harden herself against life's challenges. She does not armor her heart with defensiveness or sharpness. Instead, she acknowledges every sensation, every impulse, and every thought, welcoming them into consciousness. By observing herself in this way, she creates a foundation of inner clarity and stability. Softness, in this context, is not weakness. It is an active practice of self-possession. It is choosing to inhabit her own energy fully, allowing the flow of her natural rhythm to guide her presence and actions. Softness requires courage because it is an act of conscious vulnerability. To remain soft in the face of criticism, conflict, or provocation demands greater strength than to react with aggression. It requires trust in one's inner authority, confidence in one's discernment, and faith that gentleness does not preclude protection or action. The woman who embodies softness as mastery understands that she can maintain her boundaries without resorting to harshness. She can assert herself without domination, influence without coercion, and lead without command. In this balance, she discovers a magnetic energy that is rare precisely because it does not rely on force or fear to create impact. Softness is also deeply connected to listening and observation. When she approaches life with softness, she is attuned to the subtleties around her, the tone of voice, the cadence of movement, the shifts in energy that often go unnoticed. She listens with presence, perceiving not only the words, but the underlying currents of intention and emotion. Through this attentiveness, she develops discernment, understanding when to engage, when to speak, and when to allow silence to carry its own weight. In this way, softness becomes a form of mastery, a tool for navigating relationships, influence, and presence without coercion or force. One of the most profound aspects of softness as mastery is its alchemy with power. True power does not need to shout. It does not need to dominate or intimidate. It exists quietly, consistently and with integrity. The soft woman channels her energy with precision, choosing how and when to express it. Her influence is subtle but undeniable because it emanates from alignment rather than performance. She does not act out of compulsion or ego, but from grounded awareness, making every word, gesture, and decision deliberate. In her presence, others feel calm yet attentive, supported yet challenged, welcomed yet inspired. Softness also embodies emotional resilience. Life presents trials, provocations, and turbulence, yet she does not harden herself in response. Instead, she absorbs, processes, and transforms her experiences with grace. Anger, disappointment, and fear are acknowledged, felt, and transmuted into understanding and strength. The soft woman does not become a vessel for uncontrolled emotion. She allows it to flow through her with awareness, learning from it, and allowing it to refine her character. In this process, she cultivates an emotional intelligence that is rare, deep, and profoundly stabilizing. The practice of softness as mastery extends to interactions with others. In relationships, she does not seek control through manipulation or aggression. She engages with attentiveness and discernment, offering empathy, compassion, and clarity. She recognizes the autonomy of others while maintaining her own boundaries, creating a dynamic that is grounded in respect rather than obligation. Her presence evokes trust and confidence because it is rooted in alignment rather than performance. People sense her authenticity, her steadiness, and her clarity, responding naturally to the energy she embodies. Softness also nurtures creativity and intuition. When the mind is rigid or defensive, the flow of insight is blocked. By embracing softness, she opens space for perception, imagination, and intuition to flourish. She perceives subtleties others overlook, senses patterns beneath the surface, and responds with insight rather than reaction. This capacity to navigate life from a place of quiet awareness allows her to act with both precision and fluidity, combining discernment with spontaneity, wisdom with adaptability, and gentleness with authority. Another dimension of softness as mastery is the integration of acceptance with aspiration. The soft woman does not resist what is, she acknowledges the reality of the present while remaining aligned with her vision. She balances receptivity with intentional action, flowing with circumstance without losing sight of her goals or values. Her approach to life is neither passive nor frantic, but intentional, grounded, and dynamic. She transforms challenges into lessons, obstacles into opportunities, and moments of tension into invitations for growth. Through softness, mastery becomes visible in the alignment of inner and outer worlds. Her energy is coherent, her presence compelling, and her influence profound. She demonstrates that gentleness is not absence of strength, that receptivity is not surrender, and that emotional depth is not a liability but a source of power. In embodying softness, she reveals the paradox of the feminine art, the ability to move through life with grace, authority, and mystery, demonstrating that the quiet, gentle, and receptive can also be the most commanding and transformative force